Oh, yeah, hi all. So I just decided to rebuild this motor. So what I'm doing is I've got another Avanti here, which I'm going to be rebuilding as well. And I thought, you know what, I'll have a look at the motor first because of a problem I had yesterday's motor. So this is another 540 Technigold here. So this was in another Avanti that I haven't run for absolutely ages. And what I did do is I put it into my black Avanti yesterday and then ran it with a new speed controller and a new 2.4 gigahertz receiver, and it lasted 5 minutes, really nice. Then suddenly it cut out, and I thought, okay, that's weird, maybe the new speed controller or the receiver has a cutout in for a certain voltage. I thought, okay, that's a bit weird, because it was going well, then it went slower, and then so it just cut out. Okay, so I thought, okay, rebuild it. So I took it all apart and realised basically ultimately that the motor wasn't spinning. So I put the motor onto the battery and it was barely spinning, so I thought, okay, I need to rebuild. So took it apart and it out dropped the little there's a little fibre washer, it's just literally dropped out in two bits, and there's also a small tiny washer like a spacer as well. So I wasn't sure which way around it went, and I thought, okay, obviously it's broken as well. So what I did is I looked online, found out that obviously there is a fibre washer. Couldn't find out what the order was of fibre washer versus a tiny little spacer. So what I did is I thought I'd take apart a standard 540 Tamiya, and in here took it out, and in here, yes, you've got take out the rotor, and on the rotor you've got a large fibre washer, then you've got the spacer, and you've also got another spacer at this end here. So that's the order of it. So I was able to then take off the fibre washer from this motor and put it into the parts bin of this one. So that's good. I then realised also that the reason it failed in the first place was the bearing. So there's two bearings, one each end, and one of the bearings, I think it's this end here, you put the rotor in there and it's literally wobbly as hell. Whereas the other end, it's virtually no wobble. So, and obviously spin it as well, and it just sounds bad. Obviously I've oiled it and all that sort of stuff, but ultimately there's tons of wobble in there. So I've ordered new bearings from rcbearings.co.uk.com, I'm not sure. Last night, £1.80 for a pair. I ordered 2 pairs plus postage, so about £5-6. So that's cool. So that's obviously that's now going to be finished and rebuilt next week. So I thought, okay, I'll double check in this one here. Have a look at this one. This one here I connected up to the battery. Sounds absolutely fine, absolutely normal. It's set on the timing mark to midway. Soldering's shite, it's all dirty. So I thought, you know what, I'll rebuild it. I will double check the order of that fibre washer and the spacer, and see if there's a spacer on this end, on this end here as well, and then absolutely suss out the plan for this motor. So to get this apart, you absolutely have to have this tool here, which you push in into there. So in a minute I'll push it into there, and that then pushes the brushes apart like that. So then that way, when I'll do this better in a second, but when you take it apart, you don't obviously damage the brushes or you don't damage anything else. So that's cool. So yeah, excuse me. So yep, so I'm going to take this apart now, and I'll do the next part of the video will be this, then I'll start to clean it, and then we'll have a look at it. Cool, cheers. Right, okay, so next part 2. So yeah, take it all apart, really easy. And here we go. So you can see here, this one here has got, if you can see there, as expected, you've got the large fibre washer on first, then you've got the smaller spacer which fits perfectly up against the inside of the bearing there. So that is absolutely the order. Now when you look in this end, there is there is no spacer at all. So there's nothing in that end there, which is fine. So that tallies up then with the other Technigold. Whereas this one here does have a spacer on this end, fibre washer spacer, so that's cool. So at least we know the situation. So you can see this one here, we need to just focus. Standard procedure, you've got lots of marks on here where the brushes rub against. It's generally dirty in there as well. So the motor seems to work. In a minute I'll take it apart and I'll check the bearings. There's quite a lot of there's loads of brush left in there. So that all looks good, just dirty. Again, I'll check the bearing, clean the bearings, all that sort of stuff. If the bearings are suspicious, like I mentioned 2 minutes ago, I've got 2 sets of bearings on order. This is how the tool goes in there, and obviously it's got the shocking soldering. So I'm actually going to order some more wire. you know, an ideally wire that's got the terminals on that go into the speaker controller. So I'll find some of that on eBay in a minute and order two or three lengths of this, you know, so I can do a few motors. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, I'll get this all cleaned up now. And what I'm worried about, well, not ever so slightly worried about, is obviously I didn't want to, obviously you can just pull this out once you get out of the bearing, but I want to be really, really careful because I don't want to break that. That's just a fibre washer. I don't want to sort of get hold of this and pull it outwards and risk breaking that fibre washer. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of oil on here now, and then gradually turn the washer and the spacer off. That way I can clean up this with an eraser off a pencil is generally what people do, I've seen, and then scrape out the crap here in this little line, in these two little lines with a toothpick, people have said, or a small screwdriver. So yeah, I just want to be really careful not to break that, because obviously if I break that, you know, then I'll have to go and get another 540 motor to take apart. Cool. Okay, right, let's crack on. Part 3. So what I did is I put a little bit of oil on here, and then simply just gently rotated it around, was giving it ever so slight pull. Once I got it just a little bit, I was able to then put the fibre washer back in again, and then I'm just unwind the small one here. I don't know what that's made of. I don't know if they're both fibre or not, but just be really, really careful. That came off fine. I then checked, say, this end here, in here, and I don't know if I can do it one-handed or not, but just try to do it one-handed. I have ordered a iPhone holder to do these sorts of things, but ultimately when you hold it and do it properly, it spins really, really easily, so it feels really good. And as I haven't even lubricated the bearing yet, so that's good. And this end here also spins really nicely as well, the bearing in there. So I'm going to clean it all up, and then obviously I'll oil both the bearings, and then I'll just simply reassemble it, and then await getting some new wire for this end. So I think that this is looking good. Yep, so I'm going to clean it up now with an eraser, and then so yeah, go from there. But yeah, a bit of oil in there. Definitely need this tool here. This is the tool here that you need, and I say there's the two washers that you need in there as well. I'm not sure what it does, but I gather it stops it from shorting, so therefore it's very, very important if that's actually what it does. Cool. Okay, right, let's crack on. Right, here we go. So just put a little bit of oil on the bearing, literally 2 drops, and just give it one spin with my finger. So that's spinning really nicely, I would say. And so when you listen to it with your ear, you can hear if the bearing's spinning cleanly or not, or if it's sort of rumbling. If it's rumbling, obviously you can try, well, in my opinion, try cleaning it out with like WD-40, that kind of product, to sort of flush it out. Then you must oil it afterwards. Definitely you have to oil it. Some people might disagree with that, but that's what I would suggest anyway. Or or if it is knackered, obviously, buy some new bearings, £1.80 plus a few pound postage. But yeah, that spins for ages really nicely, and the same for that on there. So that's cool. So it's all cleaned. What I use is electrical contact cleaner from Halfords, and a small little small little paintbrush to get into where the bearing area is in there, and toothbrush, obviously. Cool. So now I'm going to reassemble this and then test it with the motor. It's not ideal because, say, the car's not ready yet, I'd like to test it with the speaker controller, the right wires, all that sort of stuff, but for today I'll just test it out with the motor, so with the battery, just to make sure it actually works. Then I can crack on with that, and then of course wait for the wires and wait for the other bits and pieces to arrive in the post, and wait for me to also finish getting the car ready as well for it. Cool, nice one. Right, cool, so that's now done. So back on, all looks good. Let's have a quick test on here. Yeah, shove that in there. Cool. That'll do. Now, obviously, on these motors here, you can adjust the timing and the dimensions on here. So you can see that at the moment the large mark in the middle is normal, so general. Good mix of speed, good mix of power consumption, and then I need to check the manual, but one way or the other. One way is faster, and the other way is more efficient, so it's obviously slower but more efficient for your battery. So yeah, so there you go. So that's cool, and all you do is you take off this plate here, then there's 2 screws. You loosen those off with quite a sort of fine tip screwdriver, just enough so you can twist the can, and then once and then you then obviously you have the wires connected to the speed controller, something just resting on them, and then just you can just give it some throttle. Then you can just turn it, and then you can obviously hear the sound go faster or slower. And then once you're happy, let off the throttle, tighten the screws, and then put it back in the car. Cool. So yeah, that's all good now. So yeah, now I'm going to crack on with the rest of the car. And I say that's super easy to rebuild. Just be really, really careful that you are very careful with those two washers, which are quite delicate, and you obviously have the right tool, which is this one here. Electrical cleaner, little paint brushes, and some sort of regular light oil. And there we go. Thank you. Cheers.